Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. So, like Paige and Allie, ourselves, myself, Kate, and our fellow beautiful group members, as you can see on the screen, we're also a part of Dr. Taylor's food systems class, and we decided to look at ethnic food markets and how they play a role in the foodscape when we talk about food accessibility. With our project, we decided to look at some of the factors, include who goes there, who lives around those areas of the markets, how do they get there, how much does it cost to spend money at the market, and then also the variety that's offered. So why are these markets important? They're important because they provide a home away from home, a culture of familiarity, and a cultural connection that you may not be able to get in your average grocery store. When looking at food markets, these ethnic food markets, we identified about 26 stores in the Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor area. They were identified due to their name, signage, and products that they offered. Great. We used a grounded theory method when looking at these stores due to the ability to be flexible when looking at the massive amount of products that we found. So I would like to draw your attention to the very pun intended donut at the bottom of the slide. So the two things that I want to point out are the dry goods and the other section. Dry goods are classified as sweets, rice, beans, and lentils. So whenever we walked into a store, it was an overwhelming large amount of those products that we would see when we walked in. In terms of the other category that you can see on the screen, classified home items, personal care items, beverages, and cultural items. It's easy to think of an ethnic food market as a place to just buy food, but also if you're looking to pick up a sponge or something different that you just feel comfortable in an atmosphere to pick it up there. As well as culturally significant items. A lot of times, cultural significant items included things like prayer mats or holiday decorations for holidays that are non-dominant in the United States.
So in this really preliminary geographic analysis also of how well these markets were serving food access for low-income households, we looked at the Ann Arbor Area Transit Authority bus service relative to our store locations, which you'll see on the next slide, sorry. Much of the food access literature that we looked at considers spatial accessibility of healthy food by bringing up things like car ownership and access to transit, especially relative to shopping in mainstream grocery stores. And any of us who use the bus here in town know that weekend service is significantly limited. And if we assume that many households would prefer or need to buy groceries on weekends, which is kind of anecdotally supported in some of the literature we saw, then we see that transit service is a notable limitation for food access. And these two images show a comparison of the weekday service to the weekend service, weekday being on the left and weekend service being on the right in the Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti area. We forgive the ish on that we needed a new layer, but so we hypothesized a correlation of higher populations of the target clientele base for our ethnic markets with the actual locations of these markets. We found this actually really difficult to test using census data because of the challenges in using census data to quantify cultural or ethnic groups. But you can see that upon our first pass of analysis, our study markets were more likely to be located in more diverse or at least less prevalently white neighborhoods. The white households are represented by the kind of fluorescent green dots. Sorry, that's very difficult to see. I can't even read it from here. The red dots are East Asian. Sorry, the blue dots, I believe, are African American. Sorry, it's a tricky map. And then the stores are the little diamonds. So I would be interested to look at more of the causal phenomena of where the stores are located relative to relative to the communities that they might be trying to serve. And sorry. So we had some limitations to our study that we've mentioned a little bit already. And one of them is that it was difficult to cobble together our methodology given the lack of attention to this previously in some of the literature to specifically ethnic markets as food access in communities. Our data set was wildly heterogeneous because we didn't really have a frame of one particular cuisine or ethnic kind of store we were looking at. We were looking across different kinds of stores. And the census data was a really rough proxy for what we were trying to measure. And in the future, we'd be interested to look at food miles relative to the mainstream grocery stores or the chain grocery stores, especially produce, because of the prevalence of imports for the places we were looking at. Doing a little bit more of an ethnographic study of customer experiences and even staff, employees, and owner experiences in these markets. A history of the clientele populations in the local context. And here's us doing some field research. Thank you.